What is up, everybody? Welcome to 00 Deep Dive. Basically, Scream 1 and 2. It's a little bit different if you turned into Pop Culture Pros and seen 00 Deep Dive on here. Usually you would see Jason and Ginny and sometimes myself talking about James Bond, but we've kind of decided to expand our franchise within the thing. Yeah, we kind of got our own little niche going here. So yeah, we'll be talking about the Scream franchise over the next couple of weeks as we lead up to Scream 6. And yeah, we got a little bit of a new panel. If you're familiar with Pop Culture Pros, you're very familiar with Jada from the Jada and Kyle show, and also has appeared on many episodes of Granny's Peach Tea, because we looped him in with WandaVision at first, and then he was just with us for 100th episode the other day. So Jada, what's up, dude? What's going on this Saturday afternoon?
I am so hyped. And I know our guest is as hyped as I am, because we are finally talking Scream on this channel. Hasn't been done before. One of my favorite horror franchise of all time. One of my favorite films of all time. We're gonna do a quick little deep dive on 1 and 2 leading up to 6. So this is the first of a few episodes to come. But so hyped. I love that we just kind of like spitballed this idea and it was done in less than 48 hours. We're here. Let's do it. And I love that we were so eager to do this, but I'm rambling on, like I said. Janine, you're here. Thank you so much for being here. I couldn't do this episode without you.
You are my Scream buddy. We're always texting, messaging each other about what's
any
going
little
on
thing that I know Scream.
Yes.
Mind you, she when I was living in Florida, she was in LA. It'd be, again, like 3-hour difference, right? And the trailer will drop at whatever time, and I'm sending it to her.
She's sending it to me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, we're geeking out.
She's like, all right, like probably half asleep, but she's like, all right, I'm doing this, and then we'll chit chat 10-15 minutes, and then we'll carry on. Crazy enough. So just a quick background. Janine has been on my channel before. So if you've tuned into my show, you guys know who she is. But I met her through the Schmodown. She was one of the greatest competitors of the Schmodown. One of my favorite, even before a fan before I was even in the show. And then, as luck will have it, I was always rooting for her, and as luck will have it, we end up being in the same team when I joined the Schmodown. So she was like my mentor, and we had a little, back and forth. She's beat me every single time that I've gone against her she's beat me on the Schmodown. She's beat me on the Scream trivia. She is a force to be reckoned with. Wow. But I don't know if you remember this very well, Janine, but the very first night that we hung out was right after the draft, and you were, hanging out with. Yeah, I had nobody out there. I didn't know anybody except for my pal BC. That he was the reason who I was staying with at the time. I knew nobody. I didn't know anybody. And I saw you. I'm like, you know what? She's my teammate now. Let me go talk to her. Mind you, I was like fangirling, like everywhere, because I was like, oh my god, like I was just like everywhere, looking everywhere. And one of the first conversations, I don't even know, to be honest with you, how it came up with, but it wasn't even Scream 1, it was Scream 2.
Yes.
We started talking Scream 2. And we were just back, and I don't know, like I was like, oh, she knows her shit about Scream, man. And it was just going back and forth, quoting. We were quoting Hallie, and the beginning with we'll get there, but we were just quoting the movie back and forth and what the franchise meant to us. And I'm like, I just found my new best friend.
Yes.
I had never met
Scream
anybody that loved me. Yeah, exactly. So again, I ramble on, but thank you so much for being on the show. I appreciate it.
Of course, happy to be here.
So let's just dive into this. I kind of hand it off to you, Janine. Talk to me about the first time, what it means to you. Well, obviously, I kind of said that we were gonna that you love this, but talk to me. Let the people know.
Yeah, it was my birthday. I was having a sleepover. I think it was like 7th grade summer going into 8th grade. So I was maybe like 13, 14. So we had like a pool party first, and my friend had just seen Scream. So she's telling me like the whole movie. She's not telling me who the killers are, but she's telling me like the whole story. She's telling me like it's got hot boys in it. And I'm like getting so like, this sounds really interesting. She's telling me like it's kind of like a mystery, you have to solve it. And she's getting me so hyped about the premise of this movie. So at the kind of slumber party portion of the party, I beg my mom, can we rent this movie, please? And so she lets us rent it. So we're all like on the floor with our sleeping bags around the TV. We put on this movie. I see Drew Barrymore. I'm like excited. I'm so into this. That opening just had me like, we were all just completely silent, just so intense into this opening. And by the end, I was a huge fan. Horror was something that I was always kind of intrigued with, but I never really took that dive into fully like being a horror fan. I tried to watch Elm Street like at 8, and I remember being really fascinated by it, but terrified. Like I could not eat pizza for weeks because it reminded me of Freddy Krueger's.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That is hilarious.
Yes. So Wes is kind of bookended my horror fandom. So it wasn't until Scream where I felt kind of fully able to embrace the horror genre with this first movie. So yeah, it was a slumber party for my birthday. It was my first time watch, and I was obsessed at that point.
Interesting.
Nice
Interesting.
Talk to me, Ed.
I'm gonna tell you the truth. I didn't see the first one in theaters. I'm pretty sure I saw it on like video because I was a little on the fence because I'm like a huge Nightmare on Elm Street fan, and you know, grew up in slashers with Friday the 13th and Halloween and stuff. But when this came out, I felt like Wes Craven was in a weird place where I wasn't sure how much I trusted or didn't trust.
Well, he was in a weird place, so you're not wrong.
Yeah, so in horror in general was like in a weird place in the mid-90s, and that's why I think I'll get into more detail with like why this film works so well and like it was perfectly timed when it was released. But I heard some of the hype, and I was just like, you know something, let me just check this thing out, and I loved it from jump because of the premise of like it being so self-aware and everything like that of the franchise. It was like totally different. And at that time, there wasn't like a lot of that going on. Like those kind of movies were like misunderstood. And like, you know, for the action genre, like Last Action Hero, I love. I'm a big Schwarzenegger guy, and everyone was like, this is stupid. What is he doing?
The world, the world was not ready for this very self-referential movie.
Exactly. And that's why it like works so well. And rewatching it with my wife recently because we're excited for 6, and I don't think she's seen a lot of the originals like for a long time. And I was like, my love for it kind of like came all back again. I'm like, this thing is awesome, man. It's like, it's such a smart horror film.
Yeah, that's awesome. So for me, I did see it in the theater, but I did it. I was 10. I was 10 years old, and I did not buy a ticket to this movie. So how the story went down is my older, so I grew up with a cousin that's like a brother of mine. We're 3 months apart, right? And he's the only other like big horror guy that I have in the family. He's obsessed with horror, but he wasn't always that way, and neither was I, to be completely honest with you. Kind of piggybacking off of what you said, Wes Craven was somewhat my intro. I remember that, well, not my intro, but the person that scared the shit out of me when it came to horror films, because growing up, I was fine watching the Child's Play movies, and I was fine watching the Halloweens and the Jasons. Creepy, but I was never terrified that I couldn't go to sleep, right? Freddy Krueger was the one guy that you couldn't escape, in my opinion, because I love sleep, right? So that scared the shit out of me. And I would have a phobia growing up with Freddy Krueger. I couldn't see him, even if it was a picture. I'd like turn around and I'd immediately get goosebumps. We had a Planet Horrorwood, listen to me. A Planet Hollywood in Coconut Grove out here in Miami. Big restaurant, and I knew there was a Freddy Krueger upstairs, and I never went upstairs because I knew there was a Fred. And mind you, I found out after it was just the glove and the sweater. It wasn't even like a cutout of him. So I kind of regret it, because now, being a movie buff that I am, like Planet Hollywood, it's it would have been so cool to. I remember like when you walk into the restaurant, they had a giant frozen Sylvester naked Stallone from Demolition Man.
Yeah.
Which is super bizarre if you think about it. I'm like, I don't think that would pass now. I feel like people would
No.
Right? But yeah, so Wes always, because of Wes, terrified of what was Freddy Krueger, and anything that had his name attached to it, I would not watch. New Nightmare came out, which was like kind of his first like really meta film.
Yeah.
Didn't care for it. It had Freddy Krueger. I love the design of Krueger because it scared the shit out of me even more, but I would not watch the movie. And then he had not directed by him, but he had Wishmaster. And I wouldn't see, as soon as I saw Wes Craven's name, I'm like, not watching it. I'm not watching it because he had that impact on me, right? So I remember the same cousin that I'm talking about, his older sister, which I saw her as my older sister, was dating a guy, which still married till this day. So he's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
He was telling her about Scream, how he saw this really, really good scary movie in the theater about a mass killer, and that it was a whodunit. Like, you don't know who it is, and you know all the characters are kind of in your face.
Yeah,
and
you have to figure
you know
out.
you have to figure out who's the killer. You think it's this person and this person, and he was telling me like, you think it's this guy, but it can't be this guy. And he was like explaining it kind of like Charlie Day and so I was so intrigued by that story where I was like, I kind of want to see this movie, you know, based off word of mouth, right? He talked it up so much that she was like, let's go watch it tonight. And he's like, all right, let's go. We had a movie theater crowd. We could walk to the theater, right? And I remember that I wasn't allowed to go see that movie. So they're like, you have to stay home. But I mean, they're like, you can't see that movie, but you can go see another movie if you want to. And I was like, all right, fine, whatever. We went to go see, I went to go see that, bought the ticket for, they bought me the ticket. I didn't buy a ticket at 10 years old. They bought me the ticket to go see That Darn Cat. With Dougie Doug and, and Christina Ricci, right?
Yeah.
So I was 10 minutes into the movie and I was like, this sucks. Got up and snuck into Scream. Saw where they were sitting, and I sat all the way in the back so they wouldn't tell me to get out. And I sat literally back row watching this movie.
Oh my God,
and
that's awesome.
That intro to that movie scared the shit out of me. And I had no idea that Wes Craven directed this movie. I had no idea. When he didn't tell me that.
You would have gone in there.
Yeah, I wouldn't have gotten in there. Of course not. But I'm glad they didn't tell me. So I went in there. That intro, again, it's probably like the most iconic scene in the whole franchise, so well right? Yeah. In my opinion. But I saw the movie. I remember the movie finishing, and it just kind of like scarred me. Mind you, again, I was 10 years old. It was very young. And it scarred me to the point where I didn't sleep that night. I got so scared. I freaked out. I really did freak out because it was, for me, in my opinion, the first time that I had seen a movie where the killer wasn't an entity, it wasn't, you know, a ghost of some sort.
Yeah, it was a real person.
Like, it was a real person doing this. And that, for me, was the scariest part of this movie, where I'm like, anyone could have just jumped behind that and just lost their marbles and done this, you know? Yeah. So that's what scared me. And I remember not being able to sleep, and my mom looked at me, she was, what's wrong with you? And I start crying, bawling out of control, that I'm like, I saw a scary movie and I can't sleep. And, you know, my mom's like, who told you to go see that movie? And I'm like, this guy got gutted and his guts came out. Like, you know, like telling her all this crap, right? But that was around December, not even. I didn't think I saw it that early. I think I saw it like February or March or whatever. It was still hitting hard in the theater. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I just remember that when it came out, because we had pay-per-view, when they announced that it was coming out on pay-per-view, for me, that was like, oh my God, I want to see it again. You know, I need to see it again because it had that impact on me. Yeah. And once it hit pay-per-view, I think I saw it every day for the remainder of that year. I don't know.
I watched that rental several times before we had to take it back.
Yeah, I don't remember. I honestly can't even tell you, or can't even come up with an idea of when or how many times I've seen the original. I really can't tell you, because I've seen it so many times. Yeah. But yeah, that's kind of my intro to Scream, to be honest with you. And it was a mistake. Oh, when it ends and I see directed by Wes Craven, I was like,
oh my gosh. I'm so freaked out.
But just like you said earlier, Janine, this was my feet getting wet into horror film, like really doing a deep dive into horror. And I started going back because I would see the other ones out of order. At the time, I think it was like Jason Goes to Hell that was coming out. When the Freddy head came out, I was like, oh, no, not watching this again. But I remember watching these movies, Child's Play 3, and I was perfectly fine with them. But I wouldn't really watch them in order or watch them as many times as I would watch, my action films or, my cartoon films at the time and all that stuff. But then this was like, man, if this was good, what else is out there? What don't I know about? And I started, I think this is what honestly started not only my love for horror. I've always loved movies, but doing like really deep dives because I loved how I didn't understand the meta-ness the first time I saw it. That got better as I got older.
And how self-aware and the tropes,
and I understood how great, and then started watching like the Psychos and all that shit that they kind of grab little things from here and there, and I was like, oh my god, it was a film completely ahead of its time, just like Last Action Hero was. This movie for me is just completely ahead of its time, still holds up. But let's dive in.
So just before we start, Jader, I actually had, when I was a kid, I had a Freddy Krueger poster on my wall in my bedroom.
Hell no.
And I'll tell you something right now though.
When I sleep at night.
And it was from the fourth one, so I had to be. I mean, shit, I don't even know how old I was at the time, but like, it was almost my weird way of conquering my fear of him. I'm gonna
fourth
be honest.
One came out what, like 80, 87, 88 around there?
No, 84.
The first one. 84 was the first one. The fourth one. I think they came out every 2 years, and then I think the sequel, it was 2 years, and then they did one back. I think they did 4, 5, or
4 or 5 were
3,
back to
4,
back
5,
years.
like back. Yeah,
that's what why I think 5 is so terrible because they just churned it out and that was it. But the fourth one though, no, the pizza thing, you brought me back there for a minute because I actually saw that in the theater with my mother, and she took me to see it, and I was just like amazed by it, and she was leaving. And I stayed until they cleaned out the theater, and I watched it again right after. I was like obsessed with it. But
wow, let me tell you, hats off to you, sir, because
I might say something crazy about me. I'm not really sure.
Well, that's how I am now as an adult, but as a kid, hell,
I was trying to be cool. I was trying to stay up and watch it with my sister and her friend. I was only 8, and I was just kind of like into it, but terrified at the same time. And then as soon as I laid down to sleep, I could not. I was so freaked he was going to come get me in my dreams. Yeah, pizza was ruined for me for a long time. Yeah,
that would be the most heartbreaking part of anything. Right? To be honest with you, the fact that they ruined pizza for you, that's terrible.
Like melted cheese pizza. Like
I remember I was out on a trip, and I was in Nicaragua. Right, and my cousin had the VHS of Freddy's Dead, the Final Nightmare, and they're like, "Oh, let's watch it." And I was like, "Hell no!" What do? They're older cousins, and they kind of like grab me. We're watching it, and then I remember watching the movie perfectly fine. I remember that he was playing the Nintendo with Breckenmeyer, and he was going, all that, and I've always remembered Breckenmeyer as that guy. He was never like the guy in Clueless or Road Trip. He was that guy that Freddy Krueger killed in this movie. But always like he came out in Clueless. I'm like, hey, it's that the Nightmare on Elm Street guy. But I remember again going home, going to sleep perfectly fine because we saw it during the daytime. As soon as I went to sleep and I woke up, I could have sworn it was a coat hanger. By the way, there was a hat and a jacket on it, and I thought it was him. And I screamed bloody murder. Like they thought someone was in the room with me. And then they turned on the light. I see the coat hanger. I'm like, oh my God. Like I was embarrassed at that time, but that's how terrified of Krueger was. I didn't face my fear, to be honest with you, until Freddy versus Jason came out because I wanted to see that movie so bad. And even then, I remember that I was like going into the theater, and I saw it opening night, right? And I was going into the theater still with a little bit of chills that I had to kind of see Freddy Krueger on the big screen for the first time. But that movie was great because I actually am a big defender of that film. And then after that, I was like, all right, fear's over. I'm good.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so we definitely got over our Freddy stuff like at different times.
Late in the game.
Yeah, no, because for me, it's like when it was almost like they were making him an anti-hero. After starting with the fourth, it was weird. Look back on it, like, why were you pushing this to kids with toys and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Especially when we know what he did. Whatever. Well, Jason and I already talked about doing a deep dive into the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. It kind of sounds like Jada should be definitely into that.
I could do that now. I could do it. No, I sure? For what it is. I can't say that I love that franchise. I love the original so much. The original's so good. And then I pick and choose the rest. Like I think I really like 3. 3 is good.
Dream Warriors
and then I love Dream Warriors is great. New Nightmare's great, exactly. I think 4 and 5 I was not good. Or 6, to be honest with you. I was just like I can do without them. But yeah, we'll talk about that later.
We'll talk about that when we get to that, because now you get me a little too hyped and sidetracked with the Nightmare on Elm Street stuff.
Absolutely.
But let's get back to Scream though.
Yes.
So I mean, a change for Wes Craven too, because he wasn't really writing this one or not. Like this was a completely different animal for him.
He turned this one down.
He turned it down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He turned it down a couple times. He was trying to stray away from the blood and gore, and he it wasn't until his assistant was like, "You should read this script.
You gotta check this out.
You gotta do this." And then he eventually read it, liked it, but he didn't really sign on until Drew Barrymore was on board, and Drew Barrymore was set out to be Sidney Prescott, which was. Little fun fact. Did you know that? No,
I did not know that. I'm gonna be honest, I did not.
I know, Janine. I know nothing's gonna surprise you today. but and we got a couple little Easter eggs for you. But yeah, she signed on originally, and she was supposed to be Sidney Prescott. But actually, I saw her recently on an episode of Hot Ones, and she said that she loved horror movies, but she hated the fact that she always knew that the main character was gonna get away scot-free. The final girl and all that stuff. So she kind of threw out the idea to Wes Craven, saying like, "Hey, why don't we do this? Why don't I play Casey? You put me all over the marketing. Her face is in the marketing.
Everything,
in the background. Everything was Drew Barrymore, and you kill her off 15 minutes into the film. Meaning there are no rules, which is what I love about these franchises. They there's rules to be followed. But overall, like they even gave you some of the tropes within the film when Sydney's talking to Ghostface and she's like, when he's like, do you like scary movies? And she goes, they're all the same.
Same thing.
And then shortly after that scene, she's talking about making fun of the girl in the movie when they're like
doesn't go out the front door and runs up the stairs.
Runs up the stairs.
She does.
30 seconds later, boom, she's running up the stairs because she can't go out the front door. Which is again that whole meta thing that they do is just pure genius in this of this movie. But yeah, they this movie, like I said, we haven't really dove what the film is overall. Obviously, everybody's at this point. I would assume a lot of people know the ending, so obviously this is all spoiler. We can talk freely and all this stuff. This movie came out in 1996, for God's sakes. But just the fact that they did what they did with this movie. They have they have your references to horror movies, which it makes you feel like the fan that's watching this movie is thinking the exact same thing the characters are thinking. Which is one of the things, again, I love. And then having, your main character cut off, then killed off, and then you get introduced to a new set of characters, this and that, and they're all very lovable / related. You care about every single one of the character development in this movie is fantastic, because I don't think there's a single character, if Gail Weathers, Courtney Cox's character, is supposed to be a bitch, and she's a bitch, and then she does it very, very well.
And to cast this actress that people know from this popular show as a completely different character, she loved taking on this challenge of kind of playing this bitchy role. So
she had to convince Wes.
She
wrote him a letter saying like, I can be a bitch. Don't, typecast me as that level. Yeah, I can do it. And then, she got the part, and biggest bitch of the franchise. Love her to death, bro. I love her. I love her character so much. But yeah, she just nailed it, And then David Arquette, obviously,
coming I mean, he was cast as Billy, but he turned that down to play Dewey instead.
Interesting.
That I didn't know.
Yeah. Interesting.
Dropping some bombs on me. I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you.
Okay.
So yeah, but I don't know if you guys want to. What do you guys want to?
I mean, we can jump. I mean, since it's a movie from 1996, we can kind of jump to the points we want to jump into. You had mentioned some of the Easter eggs that are in this film. I mean, me personally, the random red and green sweater that's hanging up in the room is just kind of like one of my favorite things. I'm sorry. I'm jumping around to the second one. The first one, it was
like wrong movie, bro.
I'm sorry. I'm
jamming Fred the janitor. Yeah,
jamming them together.
He's actually Wes Craven is actually the janitor in the Fred costume.
Yeah.
So that was fun. And I think there's something in principle in Henry Winkler's
he actually has a leather jacket in his closet.
Yeah, which is
like the scene of him kind of checking his hair very much nods to the Fonz. I believe Wes Craven said they had shared the same agent, and so Henry actually said, I want to be in this movie. So that's why he's in there. But I love the way they really made the continuity of events really make sense. So if you go through it, I actually did a whole video breaking down when I think the killer's Billy and when I think the killer's Stu. And they really hold to giving you enough clues where all of those things kind of line up. They make sense. There's kills done for a reason, like Principal Himbry was killed so that they have a distraction later to get everyone out of the party. I feel like Tatum was killed so that Billy wouldn't have somebody kind of cock blocking him and he could get to Sydney.
Yep.
Yeah, there's literally reasons for
everything.
And
he gives the most obvious sign that Tatum's dead. He looks at
Stu, and then when you watch it that second time, it is so fucking obvious.
You're like, dude, how the hell did I not
video store
this?
Scene alone is enough to how did we not pick up on this energy? Even at the fountain when you think he's defending his friend at first, but really he's just dude, stop talking.
Nobody says you did, and he gives him this shut up.
Stop talking, shut the hell up. You're saying way too much about knowing how to gut somebody.
Yeah. No. I love it. And then again, I saw something the other day which I wasn't thrilled about it or anything, but I was like, they do this throughout the whole film because someone posted, I forgot on what page. You know how the algorithm, if you start looking at Scream things, it's just Scream things, right? But it's we should have known that Billy was the killer from the get because he had boots on the fountain. I'm like, yeah, but so did everybody else.
They showed they showed the sheriff with boots.
The sheriff had the boots, obviously Dewey. They don't really focus, but it's a part of the uniform and all that. So I'm like, that does nothing. But watching it again, once you know who it is, because even the first time you watch it, Billy gets killed. So the whole movie points to him throughout the whole film, and it's it's Billy, it's Billy, it's Billy, it's Billy, it's Billy. And then he gets killed. You're like, what the hell is it?
Yeah. He's working so hard to defend himself. Even when, she's kind of believing it's not him, he's still pushing, what do I have to do to get you to not believe it's me? But she's I already believe it's not you. But he's still somehow pushing that it's not him. So the fact that he's working overtime. And so, that fake out death definitely threw you for a loop because you definitely, I think, were leaning towards him kind of the majority of the film. And then when that happens, you're like, well, now I don't even know who
is it? I don't know who it is. Exactly. Yeah. And I remember the real twist for me, which again, we're kind of getting, we're kind of jumping everywhere. It's fine. Yeah. The real twist for me was when he turns around when Jamie Kennedy walks in, right? And then he goes, Stu's gone mad. He goes, we all go a little mad sometimes. Obviously, originally didn't know that was a reference to Psycho, even though he mentions it right after. He goes, Norman Bates Psycho when he shoots Jamie Kennedy, right? And you're like, oh my God, it's Billy. But then when she turns around and you see Stu Macher's character, Matthew Lillard, saying surprise, Sydney, the fact that there were two killers,
two of them,
anyone's mind. Yeah. Anyone's, that for me was the real twist. When the reveal was oh shit, okay, it was duh, fake out death. But then you're like, and you don't really think about it right after that, because you're like, all right, well, who's in the Ghostface costume, killing Billy or whatnot? Even then, with the reveal, you're like, oh, okay, it's him. You don't even think like there is a second killer, but who the hell stabbed Billy while all this thing were going down? Obviously, less than like 10 seconds later, there's a reveal that there is a second killer. That for me was the most jaw-dropping moment. One of my, I want to say, like, movie-going experience overall, one of the most shocking scenes. Because right after they did that, it didn't matter the sequel. You kind of always expect two killers, so you're always looking at two people right after that.
After
right
the first
after
one,
the
now
reveal.
you're expecting it.
Once
an alarm
once the
going
first
off.
one happens, so that you have an alarm. Because now every time I'm like, who it could be this person and this person, and I'm like looking at accomplices and things like that. But yeah, I that reveal for me, and just jumping into each individual. I know we mentioned Courtney Cox being so great, and obviously Nev Campbell. You got to give her flowers. I'm kind of sad. I am kind of sad that she's not returning for the new one, right? But it doesn't kill my love for the franchise, so it makes me think like, yes, I love her, but like Ghostface is the franchise for me. So
yes,
but Rose McGowan as Tatum.
Oh my gosh,
as the best friend,
so good.
Kills it.
I mean, she's a little bit flaky in her moments, but like, there's true support for Sydney there. Like, there are so many scenes of her kind of coming to her defense, making sure she's okay, checking up on her, and even in her death scene, making her such a fighter. Like, she's one of the few characters in their death. She's like fighting till the very end. And she actually doesn't get a stabbing death. Like, her death is so kind of random in what happens. She literally just gets a slice on the forearm.
That was a death that was imprinted in my brain too.
Yes.
For a long time. I would see like that. I was like, oh my God.
Yes. And such a cool death because like everything could be a simple gunshot or a stabbing. So to have kind of a cool death like that you're really not expecting at all. But I loved her going out as a fighter, throwing bottles, cussing him out. She had Ghostface looking hella clumsy in that whole kind of sequence. Yeah. So I love her.
And the one that calls him Ghostface.
Yes.
She's the one that actually calls him Ghostface.
Labels him.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also kind of like the fact that, like, in this film, like, it's two real people, right? We mentioned it's not like some kind of like supernatural entity or anything like that, and they take a beating. Like, a lot of this movie. I mean, that's made light on, and I don't even like scary movie, honestly, but like, there's certain things like rewatching this recently, a lot of the things that they goof on about this movie, are all that. And that was one of them. How much he gets his ass kicked.
The OG scary movie is great. The OG scary movie is great. I love the first one. The first two are really good. But
the original title was actually Scary Movie. Yeah.
So Scary Movie was when they were shooting the film. The movie was called Scary Movie. That's what Scream was supposed to be called, and I think it was Bob Weinstein said that he heard a Michael Jackson song called Scream with Janet Jackson, and he's like, we should title it
Scream.
That he liked the Scream in the movie, and he told Wes Craven to change the title of the movie to Scream, and they were kind of hesitant at first, and then voila.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, man.
It's kind of hard to imagine it being called Scary Movie now, I guess.
I know.
Now you have
what Scary Movie is.
I agree. I agree. 1,000%.
But I like the humanity that Ghostface has, like getting beat down and like, in a fight and just getting his ass kicked, because we just didn't see that at the time in any of the, in any of the slasher films that we had seen before this. I mean, Freddy is unstoppable essentially, and so is Jason Voorhees and Michael Myers to like different extents, but this was like a completely different thing.
Yes, and that Ghostface stuntman is actually the same stuntman who did the fire stunt going up the stairs as Freddy Krueger.
Wow, nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. In the first Nightmare, the fire stunt guy is who.
Who did a lot of
Craven keeps it in the family.
Yeah, man.
Craven keeps it in the family.
Yeah, the sheriff. He's also, I think, a sheriff in Elm Street as well.
Yeah,
he is.
Sheriff Burke. Yeah,
he really is. Yeah. And then he, I know that originally this movie was supposed to be. So I kind of told Ed this. I'm sure you know. that the reason why this movie existed was because Kevin Williamson was at home
Oh
house
yeah.
sitting one night,
Mhm.
and he was on TV. It was on TV. News came on about the Gainesville Ripper
Yeah.
and about the murders that happened on Gainesville. I think I told Ed, and I'm pretty sure I told you, Janine, that I met actually the brother of the male victim of the Gainesville Ripper
Oh
at
wow.
work while I was hyping Scream 5 to my coworkers when it had just come out
Mhm.
last year. I was talking about it, this and that, and my coworkers like, man, it sounds like you really liked it. I'm like, man, it's revamping it. I love it, this and that. And then gentleman was there. He was really quiet, and I kind of like include people in conversations. I don't feel rude at work or whatever. And I am like, oh, do you like horror? Do you like movies? Do you like horror film? And he goes, never see Scream, never will see Scream. Not a fan. And I was
Oh
like,
wow.
oh, I'm like, is there a reason why? And then he told me what happened. I was like, all right, end the conversation here,
Oh
man.
my
I'm not gonna
gosh,
tell
that's
you how much
crazy.
I
Yeah.
love this franchise, but what are the odds,
Yeah.
But yeah, so he took the idea from that, and he said that he was house sitting, and it gave him the creeps so much that he heard a noise or a tapping or something like that, and that he went to go see a window, and the window was actually opened, right? And he thought that everything was locked in, but he said that he freaked out, and he was on the phone with a friend with a knife in his hand going around the house. And then he said that, he's like, this feels like I'm in a freaking scary movie right now. And he just started penning the film down. And he only had it as a the beginning of the
Just that
film,
rough
the one
opening.
act. Yeah. It was a rough opening. That's all he wrote down. And then he said that he wanted to turn it into a screenplay, and then he wrote the film. So I
Yeah.
thought that was a very interesting fact that
That is so
how
cool.
it went
How it grew from
nothing
that,
to
to this
something
whole thing,
huge.
and just all these
Yeah.
subtle cues in that opening. The popcorn kind of being the timer of how this
Yeah.
scene is progressing, and even like how the popcorn gets super aggressive. It kind of relates to the building of that scene. And in my kind of who's the killer when, I kind of theorize that I think it's both of them there at that first kill. Obviously they're going to kind of relish in this moment together, and I think you need two of them to kind of accomplish this too. And I feel like whenever there's a phone call, it's Billy on the phone. Billy is the charmer. Billy is the flirt. We immediately see that in that next scene when he gets into Sydney's room, obviously distracting her so that Stu can kidnap Mr. Prescott. But he's charming us. He's charming Sydney in this whole scene and distracting her. So I feel like seeing how manic Stu is, it's very clear that Billy is probably always the one making the phone calls. I mean, he is smooth enough to get Casey to act like she doesn't have a boyfriend,
Yeah. Absolutely.
So I love just kind of these subtle cues that you can kind of pick up on later, like we see later Billy in the video store flirting with two girls. So just the continuity of character kind of moments to really, once you watch it back, it just makes for such a rich kind of rewatch, because you can kind of pick up on these things that happen in this opening scene, how he's talking to her on the phone, and moments that happen that really you can put on specific characters to really kind of enrich like your viewing of, okay, now I can see this was probably Billy, this was probably Stu at this moment, based off of things that happened just even in that opening scene. It's so well done.
I've always thought the same. I've always thought that the opening scene was done by both of them, because I've always heard, no, it had to be Billy all on its own because Tatum gave him the alibi that he was with me, even though Randy shuts that shit down very quick,
and nobody really answers
him.
Him. Was he sliced or diced? And nobody answers that question.
Yeah. And then so I was like, there's no way that could have been done by one person. Like I've always thought, in retrospect, obviously, after there are two killers and you start doing these deep dives into the film and who did who and who did what, Billy does most of the killing, in my opinion, in this film. I don't think Stu does anything until probably the very end.
I think Stu does attack Sydney. I think he's the one who's in her house in the closet, and he attacks her. Billy's on the phone, and I think he's the one who attacks Sydney, obviously, and he chases her up the stairs, because when he's at the door, that's when Billy comes through the window.
Boom, the Billy comes back. Yeah. No. I mean actual.
killing people. Yeah.
Actual killings. Yeah. I definitely think that he did his killings towards the end of the film. versus the beginning. I think again, Principal Henry had to be Billy. There's no way. You can't change my mind about that. Has to be,
definitely
him.
Billy.
And then
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Tatum was obviously Billy, and then once Billy gets cut out of the film temporarily, when he stabs, I think he's the one. Who stabs Dewey?
I think it's Billy. I think
it would be Billy because he's the one inside
Billy
the house.
Would be, yeah, I don't think Billy would just be.
He's not gonna be just lying there, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I feel like Stu is kind of out. He's the one who finds Gale. He probably does something to make Randy realize it's him, and that's why when they're both at the door, he's kind of saying that Stu's gone mad and all this because Stu has done something while they're outside running around that makes him realize that Stu is one of the killers. So I think anything that's kind of nearby the house is Billy. I think Billy stabs Dewey. I think Billy is the one who chases her around the car, and then it's obviously he has to disappear.
What do you think he's behind Randy when they're doing the Jamie scene with Jamie Kennedy telling Jamie Lee Curtis?
I think that actually might be Stu, and then when he hears Sydney screaming outside, that's when his chase of Sydney outside kind of starts.
That's what I thought too. But I thought it was Stu as well.
In actuality, I think that was Skeet actually in the costume. That was the one time.
Yes, I heard that. I did hear. That was the one time that any actor was one of them was actually in the Ghostface suit. Yes. It was actually Skeet. Yes. I could never say his last name. I say Ulrich.
I think it's Ulrich. Yes.
Yeah. I always.
Yeah, I'm like, is it Ulrich? Is it Ulrich? Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. Again, I know we've kind of gone everywhere with this, but I just I think this is, in my opinion, I used to say for a long time that The Exorcist was my favorite horror movie, and I think it was just more of a. I do love the film, very, very much so. But I think it was more of a badassery because there was a time where Scream was known to be like not great, like not cool, but the sequels kind of like people just didn't like the sequels as much. Yeah. And if you say Scream's your favorite movie, horror movie, they're like, oh, you don't know shit about horror. What about the OGs that did it beforehand and this and that and that?
Yeah.
And it wasn't even when years later when Scream 4 came out, I remember being so hyped because I thought it was just going to be the first 3 films. Mm-hmm. And I remember when they announced 4 and they announced Wes Craven coming back and the original cast coming back.
And Kevin writing and everything.
It was honestly, Kevin Williamson writing the 4th one. I remember it was like telling a kid you're going to take him to Disney World. I was counting down. Same. And I remember I remember seeing the first showing on that Thursday.
And nobody
Thursday
was
preview.
In my showing.
Nobody was in there. It was me, my sister, and the girl I was dating at the time. That was it.
Yeah.
And the movie finished, and both my sister and the girl I was dating at the same time did not like it. And I remember thinking, I think this was one of the better sequels. And again, we'll do. Obviously, we're going to talk that later. But I was shocked at how many people didn't receive Scream 4 upon first viewing.
Yes, or be excited about it because this was a solid franchise up to that point.
Yeah, so. And then after that, when I didn't see anybody in theater, I'm like, this is it. This is the last Scream we're ever going to see. Thank God that's
Wes's last film, everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
How is this even going to go on without Wes? Yeah.
Yes. So going in, I love it so much. And I don't know if you just want to go on to if you have any final thoughts on this movie. I just my love for Scream, again, with when the 4th one came out, it was still kind of dying. It wasn't honestly until the 5th one came out that I'm like, you know what, fuck this. This is my favorite franchise. I don't get hyped for any other movie.
Same.
For any other movie. And then I remember just doing deep dives, and I'm showing everybody again, Steph, like the movies, loves them now because of my love for them, because I'm like, and this and this and this, and I'm like, so watching it, and I'm crazy, since I moved here to Texas, I'm like, who the hell am I gonna go see Scream? I'm like, I can go by myself, I don't care, but I'm like, but who am I gonna really show this joy to? That And then I asked my brother, and I was like, hey, have you seen Scream? He's like, I know Shaggy's in them. He doesn't even know. He's like, I know Shaggy's in one of them. And I'm like, do you know who he plays? And he goes, I know he's in it. And I was like, perfect. So we're doing a countdown again at home with Scream 6.
Okay.
I mean, so he's gonna watch all of it. I'm like, are you down? He's like, yeah. He's like, we have nothing to do. Let's do it. So
hold on. Are you guys gonna go to the fan event? There's a fan event that's before the Thursday.
No. Well, Jenny,
there's no way I knew this before you guys.
No, you did.
The fan event is like the Wednesday, right?
It's a 3D fan event.
Yes. So I originally had just because I bought tickets the first day and I didn't see the 3D event available. So I was like, I guess it's not available in my area. And then the next week when tickets were on sale, the event came up. So I canceled my original tickets and then got tickets to the 3D fan event.
Oh, yeah. Nice. Okay.
Nice.
Yes.
Because I think here it's like 3:00 in the afternoon, and I'm like, if I can skip out of work.
If they have that,
like,
if
guys,
they have that, I'll go.
I'll see you later. But
yeah.
Excuse me. I don't think I have that. To be honest with you, they don't like. Yeah, if it's a Thursday showing, I don't. Yeah, again, there's nothing to do here. But yes, with 5, I know we keep going to the future versus the 2 that we were going to talk about, but it just revamped my love for it, and I just started doing deep dives after deep dive, and commentary, the directed commentary.
Yes, I love listening to the commentaries.
I had never seen them before until 5 came out, and then I just started
going and delving into everything. Yeah,
and I love that Ghostface is back. He was it was kind of like a franchise that was just quiet. That's it. They even said that they were only going to do 3 of them.
Yeah, like they really built that third one as the final one, the last scare, all this whole thing. So there was really no intention to even come back. But I mean, you said Exorcist was your favorite before this, and we get a nice little Linda Blair cameo in the movie. And recently, in kind of my deep dive videos I've been doing, I noticed she's actually wearing like crucifix cross earrings.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like, that's a nice little touch. But
I love it. But before 3, 4, and 5, we had the sequel. The sequel, part 1, was the smash hit of 1996, and less than a year later we had Scream 2. Mm-hmm. Less than a year later we had Scream 2. They came out of the same months, but I think like 2 weeks apart, right? If I'm not mistaken.
In December.
And I, for one, was there opening night for Scream 2. My butt was in the theater. I was not gonna not that I missed the first one in theater, but I was just, again, I told you, for every day from the movie was on pay-per-view. I remember telling my mom when we the VHS came out, because I had it on VHS, saw it on VHS, and I would, as soon as my mom bought me that movie, it was just over and over. Every day she's like, you are obsessed with this movie. Which part of me, I'm not gonna lie to you, loved it so much that I'm like, am I crazy? Am I a psycho? Am I gonna be a killer when I grow up? Why do I like it so much?
I know, right?
Why am I so in love with these characters? And why do I love the characters of Billy and Stu so much? Because and you know what it was? It was the charisma of them, right?
Yes, their chemistry.
Their chemistry, Stu being so funny. So my butt was in the theater opening night for Scream 2, and just like the first one, you have Jada Pinkett Smith right there.
Yeah. Oh, known
right
face.
There, front end, known face. You had Omar Epps, and then boom, you kill your main character. That's how you start. You have to start the Scream franchise that way, right?
Me, and
and two big actors that got killed in the opening scene.
Yes, and for me, I didn't have a car. I didn't have any money. I think I was like 14 or 15, and so I didn't get to see this in theaters. Again, it was like, I think it was finally like I was had the free HBO preview weekend when your cable would give you like HBO or Showtime or something for like a week to see if you wanted to subscribe. And so that's when when we had it for that week or whatever, that weekend, that's when I finally got to watch Scream 2 on TV. And I was just, for me, as someone who always was constantly looking for representation in movies that I enjoyed, seeing the abundance of beautiful Black faces in this movie was very soothing to me. It was so much awesome representation. And even like Jada Pinkett and Omar Epps not
commentary on Black cinema.
Yes, them not even being in the film very long all the black characters, we get 4 black characters, and they all have personalities. They're all fleshed out. They all have great conversation. So yeah, their whole fun commentary about black people in horror films, because that was kind of a known trope of, you know, the black dude dies first kind of commentary. So I love,
which they did anyways.
Yes,
they still lived in. They still leaned into it though.
Anyways, yeah.
So I love that. Yeah, so I love that even we aren't sitting with these characters too long. They're still fleshed out. They're still kind of funny. We're enjoying their time together. We're enjoying their chemistry, their banter, and they're having some really smart conversation about horror films from a context of black people in horror. So I love that, you know, these movies are always a commentary on the horror genre from some element. So I love that we got kind of the black side of, you know, what their contributions and how they're seen in horror, even just a little nod to that. So for me, like, the representation was like the number one thing that had me excited about this movie. Absolutely just loved that opening, and just that rowdy theater experience. Like, you want, as a Scream fan, after seeing that, you wanted to be in that theater, and just the kind of the scariness of this person is getting murdered and nobody even realizes, nobody even notices.
No one bats an eye because they think it's all part of the show. Yeah. No, I remember. So that's the thing. So again, you mentioned no car, no money, this whole thing. I had to beg, right? And I knew the movie was coming. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think that movie came out either December 11th or 12th. I don't know why I remember that, but I know it's one of those days. And I remember counting down, or 7th. No, I think it was the 12th. I don't know. Anyways, but I know it's between the first week of or first 2 weeks.
What did you say? December what?
I think it was December 11th or 12th, if I'm not mistaken.
December 12th.
Yeah.
Nice
job. Yeah, I'm telling you, man. Yeah. So yeah, I remember. So yeah, the first 2 came out in December, if I'm not mistaken. The third one came out in a February, even though they wanted a December release date, and then the 4th one came out in April, if I'm not mistaken.
That sounds about right.
So yeah, but again, I had to beg. No one in my family watches horror films. My cousin that did watch the movie wasn't into Scream. He always told me, he's like, I know you're obsessed with Ghostface. I don't get it. He's like, I like them, but they're, you know, he's like, I don't get why Ghostface is your favorite out of all these slasher films. So my one aunt that, you know, kind of spoiled me. She had no kids, and, you know, she was just like, what do you want to watch? And I'm like, Scream. She goes, I don't do horror films. I'm like, it's not really horror, and like, you know, trying to like
finesse the idea.
And I'm like, it's not that. It's more suspense than it is horror. There's no monsters or anything. And she's like, oh, all right. I heard it's very popular and whatever. She went into it not watching the first one, right? And the opening scene, mind you, it is opening night to a huge film at this point, right? Because Scream 1 was like a massive hit. And we're watching this, and it's in a movie theater with psychos everywhere, and our theater is completely freaking packed. Completely packed. Opening night. And this movie starts in a movie theater while they're watching, kind of like meddling we're doing the same thing. And my aunt looks at me and she goes, I'm getting out of here. I don't feel comfortable watching this movie. And I'm like, no, like, please. And then
just hang in there.
Yeah, so it became like a tradition of ours. Well, she saw the first one afterwards with me, and then she took me to see 3. Well, we'll talk about 3 later. But the opening scene, seeing that they're watching the events of the first one, the stab gets introduced, which I love. The stab universe in this movie. The fact that Robert Rodriguez directed the stab film, which he was attached to direct Scream if Wes Craven didn't do it. So the fact that their own studio is peppering in all these real life things that happen.
Yeah, but I don't think we see that until 4, though. That he was the director. I don't think we see it until 4. But I love that.
No. You see it. You see it. You see it. I promise.
Are you sure? I don't think you see it until 4 at the Stabathon.
I rewatched 2 like 2 days ago or 3 days ago, and it says she's walking into the theater. And it says, based off the book of Gail Weathers, the Woodsboro Murders, and then boom, and it says a Robert Rodriguez film, which I did it. So I was like, oh shit! I thought the same thing. I thought you didn't see it until later, but you do see it in 2. Okay. And then you have Heather Graham. Yeah, I know. You have Heather Graham playing Casey Becker, which she had that earlier that year had done Boogie Nights.
Yeah.
So
when the rope comes off,
when the rope comes off, everybody's going crazy.
Yeah. Also, this great kind of layered commentary about Scream kind of being a slasher, but not really going the nudity route, which like 80s kind of horror was really known for.
Exactly.
So
which
just layered
I kind of thank God they didn't do that, because just like my 10-year-old self, one of the strongest connections I have with this film, which Janine, I'm sure you know, is the fact that my kids are obsessed with it, because I'm like, I have my rules, right? So I'm like, all right, if it's violence, we can get away with it. As soon as there's any nudity or any sex in the movies, it's kind of like a no-go for me. Depending, if it's something very, very mild, I'll just cover their eyes and then we keep watching the movie. But overall, horror film is known for their nudities and sex scenes, and especially like you said, the earlier slasher films. So I remember recently when Scream was coming out, my kids got so attracted towards The Mask, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, "What is that?" And I've seen you wear that shirt, and almost it's like, "Oh, it's Daddy's favorite scary movie." And they're like, "Is it very scary?" I'm like, "Yeah, it depends."
Yeah.
Long story short, it was my son at the age of 10, same age that I was when I first watched it. Daughter was a little younger. She was 7 or 8, but she's the one that's completely obsessed with the film now.
So cool.
But it was the fact that there was no nudity in these films. And again, besides the opening scene in the beginning, it's not really too gory. It has their
they were
depth,
forced to cut it down.
Yeah. But overall, I'm glad that I can watch these movies with my kids, and it's still that, a murder mystery, and I love them trying to figure out who it is.
Killer.
Yeah. So it's always fun for me. That's another reason why, again, I hold this movie so near and dear to my heart.
Yeah, so fun casting with Heather Graham, the same kind of obvious haircut. She's Casey Becker. Even the shower shot, the under shower shot is exactly identical to Psycho.
Psycho, yeah.
And we get it again in 5 with Wes's shower as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, and then we have that. You get your introduction to Sid. Obviously, shit goes down. She's like, it's happening again. Then you have,
I love that she has caller ID as well, and I think
caller ID,
real life kind of effects, real life effects like caller ID actually kind of sales of that went up after
went up because of Scream, because it's just like Psycho was made, Psycho was, you were scared to get into the shower. Jaws got you scared to go to the beach. This movie got you scared to
answer the phone,
picking up phone calls,
answering the phone at night.
And so you get that, Sydney sees on the news report that, these two, because we're in college now, we went from high school Sydney to college Sydney, different time. It's Ohio, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
you're in Ohio.
College in Ohio.
Yeah, college in Ohio. So we're in Ohio. We're away from Woodsboro, which we didn't kind of talk about Woodsboro in the first one. Just the city of Woodsboro, it's a character on its own, which I love in this franchise.
The small town.
Very small town, yeah. And then so we get there, we get Sydney getting the calls, and then she goes to the expert, which is Randy, which we again really didn't really
the
talk
whole film
about
class
Randy
scene.
Yeah, which they made a mistake on.
Yes, justice for Joshua Jackson.
Yes, he actually had it right. So I don't know. You recently saw it, right, Ed? The
yeah, no, I recently rewatched it.
Yeah. So the sequel sucking, and the very meta commentary that sequels aren't good and all that. And then there's a scene where they're talking, superior
which sequels are superior to the original.
They mentioned Alien, and then he goes, "Oh, get away from her, you bitch!" And then he rips the head off. He does the thing like he's gonna rip the head off. That's Joshua Jackson, which is Percy, Percy, right? From Dawson's Creek, which was written by Kevin Williamson. All meta stuff, right? And then you have Jamie Kennedy's character correct him.
Stay away from her, you bitch.
Stay away from her, you bitch. But the actual line, So the actual line that Percy says is the
Joshua
real
Jackson
line from the movie.
Correct.
Joshua Jackson says correct, but he messed up his line. So they kept it in film, but it was a mistake that they kept it in film because they were bouncing off each other, and he was supposed to say the incorrect line. He said the correct line.
Josh was
Jamie
supposed
Kennedy
to say,
said,
"Stay away from her." Yeah.
So it's a big thing that in Scream 2, the film expert made the mistake.
Botches it.
But also there's another moment as well, because you know, everyone gives Mickey these accolades for talking about The Godfather Part 2 as the superior sequel, but it's part of a trilogy. So then later at the frat party, when Mickey also brings up the example of The Empire Strikes Back, and Randy dismisses it, that it's part of a trilogy already planned, but you gave him the nod for another movie.
Yeah, you gave him The Godfather.
No,
I agree.
Yeah, it's totally
100%.
inconsistent.
So a couple of film fails for Randy, which is a bit disappointing, but
so so we get introduced to, you know, new set of characters. Hallie, which is one of my favorite characters in all Scream. Hallie is Sydney's best friend.
Yes.
Loved her energy, loved everything about her. She honestly one of my favorite Scream characters in the whole franchise. I justice for Hallie, to be honest with you. Little fun fact, you knew this, right? She was supposed to be a killer. She was supposed to be an original.
She was supposed to be the second.
So Sydney's best friend was supposed to be a killer in this movie. It was supposed to be the best friend and Mickey. It was supposed to be three of them. So it was always Debbie Salt. Yeah, so it was always Billy Loomis's mom, right? Mickey was it Mickey? It was Mickey. So it was Billy Loomis, kind of like the puppet master behind the scenes, that she wanted to kill Sydney at the end, but it was supposed to be two killers. The script leaked online, and they had to
change some things. Yeah,
they had to change some things, so they kept her as the best friend, not the killer. But
didn't appreciate them adding a couple extra stabs to her off screen, like your face is on Sydney, and then you just hear her getting brutally stabbed 5 more times.
And you get David Arquette's dad in this movie, which is the sheriff, detective sheriff.
Yeah,
he's a sheriff.
The sheriff at the time.
Yeah. So we have that. Again, love this movie. I thought it was a superior sequel. I remember coming out of this movie and thinking it was better than the original. Like shame on an 11-year-old Jader, but you know, more body counts.
Dude, you were excited. You were excited. It happened.
It was the excitement. I was like, Scream 2 is the best, hands down. And then I remember my cousin's
I thought
boyfriend.
Spider-Man 3 was really good when I first saw it. So I mean, give me a break.
Oh no,
it happens, man. You get excited.
6th grade, Batman Forever was my favorite film. So you know, we all have our.
It happens. You get caught up in the moment. What are you gonna do?
Yeah. But
yeah, I mean, having the balls to kill Randy, like
that for me was one of the most heartbreaking scenes.
Yes,
because I loved the character of Randy in the first one. I know, again, we didn't really talk about him in this, even though Jamie Kennedy was fantastic. He kills that role. The reason why I feel like the audience resonated to him too much, because we are him. You know, we are Randy. We're the ones that are watching the scary movie and know the trope and know what we should be. And he calls him out, and he calls out Billy in the video store, and he goes, "Would you be in the horror section while you're, you know, not wanted for murder, but suspect?"
Yeah,
and it's so obvious, and he's like telling us right there, like, this is the guy.
With the phone calls, everyone like thinks it's Randy goofing around with them. So the fact that they with like, Randy, stop goofing around, like, Randy, are you so like the video store, like, so the fact that everyone kind of thinks it's him because of his knowledge of these horror movies, just a great performance from Jamie Kennedy. So it was very heartbreaking.
They kill him in the sequel, and I'm like, what did they do to my boy? I felt like Corleone, man, like the Vito Corleone. What did they do?
I was so mad, but but after kind of subsequent rewatches over the years, like, to kind of understand, like, that was a ballsy move. I think it's something like that needed to happen, so that now you're kind of worried about everybody. It really kind of took up the stage.
Exactly. To say it reestablishes no rules being, in place.
Yeah, exactly.
So for that, what did you guys feel about the reveal on this? I know we already mentioned who the killers were, but
Mickey, totally obvious, because he disappears for a huge chunk of the film.
45 minutes of the movie, he wasn't around. And all of a sudden, I'm like,
he kind of has a look like. He kind of has a look like
and you see him with the video camera the whole time. So he's, but
he was,
But I think, then again, on subsequent rewatches, you can kind of frame it as, well, he's so obvious because in the end, his motive is he wanted to get caught. He wanted you to know it was him. He wants that notoriety. So then you can kind of step back and be like, okay, then maybe it was intentional that he was so obvious, because his motive turns out being, I want you to know it was me.
I was going to say, do we think it was written like that? To kind of say, hey, we're going to give you this one killer on the platter, But the other one, I remember having no idea.
No, yeah,
no clue.
I don't think anyone did.
no.
Anyone, and even when they do the fact that Mickey, right, when it was revealed, you see, he was the one obviously driving the car, kills the detectives, kills Hallie, all that stuff, right? You see him hurt, right? And the fact that, it's the sequel, Derek is missing, right? Then you see Derek hanging, and the fact that he still makes Sydney think for a second.
Question, even for a split second.
Yeah. For a split second, that he's like, oh, I had an accomplice. I couldn't do this by myself.
The
and
boyfriend
like, it's okay,
all over
Derek.
again.
He's like, Derek, we got her. And she's like looking at him. And I'm like, what an evil bastard, bro.
Right?
That was like maniacal, right?
And her last moment with this guy who actually really cared for her is not, trusting him fully,
Yeah, exactly, which is sad. Like on rewatches, knowing that he's not the killer, and the fact that she doubted him, the guy gets killed, and he's helpless because he's tied. Because had Derek not been tied,
yes, and his last words were, "I never would have hurt you,"
I never would have hurt you. Yeah, which is tragic.
He was like the nicest guy in the world. It turns out to be like.
And people hate that cafeteria scene, but for me, I love it because it's like, when do we ever see Sydney that happy ever again? When do we see her having a moment of levity? When do we ever see her being loved and appreciated and laughing and smiling like that? Like, it's so ridiculous.
And
that
you
scene.
mentioned
Mickey's
this before.
dancing makes it pretty cringe, but but just the fact that we get to see our girl like happy for one moment, to just have a breather and just have a happy moment, it like makes that scene so much better for me.
You bringing that to light to me is the only part of me remembering that is the only part that makes it now more watchable, because I said this.
Everyone hates that scene.
I hate that scene so much. But when you told me, you're like, when is the last time you really, like, when you really see her happy? And I'm like, holy shit, you really don't. And it was right there and then.
Yeah, she's
and I'm
laughing,
like, holy
she's
shit.
smiling, she's feeling loved and appreciated. She's feeling safe. She's not running for her life.
Yeah.
And then the sad part is that shortly after, she starts doubting him. And kind of like, because she just went through, and
he gets trying to let him go and all that. Yeah. No, absolutely. So the reveal happens. We see Derek. He goes up, and then he's like, I couldn't do this. He said, who's doing that? And he goes, who's the mystery guest waiting in the wings?
Waiting in the wings. Gail walking, and she has no hesitation to believe that that's Gail. Immediately she's like, Gail, I knew it. She's so quick to believe that it's Gail, which is so sad. But the evolution of their relationship
is like, nah.
The evolution of her and Gail's relationship is so well played throughout this franchise.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, that's something that I wanted to touch about like later on, because in the first one they obviously can't stand each other. In the second one, they still have that, a little bit of a fucking hesitation.
She slaps her again.
She still clocks her again. Do you know that line she improvised that line?
Yes, and then she was pissed because Joel comes like, yes, I got that on film, and she's like, he took my thunder.
He came right back. She goes, he took my thunder. Yeah, I thought that was hilarious. But you get the reveal of Debbie Saltz, aka
and hiding in plain
Billy's
sight.
mother.
Yes,
I thought it was
the whole time. And then,
I remember. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I remember originally thinking it was Cotton Weary. Like back then, I remember thinking, and I actually wanted to mention too. Now, and again, I actually didn't watch these movies for a little while now. Knowing that Liv Schreiber plays Cotton in the first one in a very small snippet.
Like he's like, it was the easiest money he's ever done. He got into a car and he left.
Get in a cop car.
That was it.
Yeah.
So I just remembered, it was not the three murders. It was Billy's mom, Debbie Salt. It was Hallie and Cotton Weary. Cotton Weary was supposed to be a killer in the original script. Now that you mentioned it.
Okay.
Yeah, in the original script, it was supposed to be Cotton Weary.
It was very much his red herring moment of him.
And it was honestly him saying like, "Oh, you blame me to be a killer. Watch me now.
I'm gonna
fuck around and find out.
Yeah.
Fuck around and find out." So that's how it's supposed to be in part 2. Leaked, and then they changed it to Mickey and still Debbie saw just 2 people instead of the 3. So there you go. Thank you for saying continuity, because I completely fucking forgot.
Man, so for all of the online changes, it seemed like they were kind of just like going with it at the time. It's amazing that this film works as well.
They were pissed
at the end.
They were pissed.
Considering some of the scenes still play to just now, those scenes, instead of actually being signs of them being the killer, they're really good red herring scenes. So the way they kind of were able to work around that, I think they played really well.
Yeah.
But the quickness of her, like, I know it's you, Gail. Like, of course it's you. And then revealing, like, you know, she recognizes her right away, Mrs. Loomis, and she says it, and you're just like, what?
Yeah.
And Laurie Metcalf, just like
Laurie Metcalf kills,
playing this annoying
role.
character that you just think is this innocuous person. Like, I don't need to worry about her. And then that reveal, and then you kind of see the moment she's.
And then you see the crazy eyes.
Yes,
crazy eyes turn on. Yes. She has those loony eyes, and I was like, "Damn, you look like
good old-fashioned revenge." Just like and you get her kind of whole story of why she was doing that, and playing Mickey. You know, like her plan is so just slick and smart, and very kind of mature in terms of, you know, I'm going to really be calculated about this. I'm going to, you know, set up Mickey and really make him think I'm backing him. And then everything will be traceable to him. And, you know, I have a clear motive. I'm not really a crazy person. I'm literally doing this to avenge my son. You know, I have a clear focus. Revenge. Yes. So very brilliant plan on her part.
And I love how when she mentioned, she goes, when they talk ill about Billy, she goes, Randy talked
a little knife happy.
I got a little knife happy.
Yeah.
And it's just a great, I feel like she's a very underrated Ghostface.
She's at the
people,
top of my list,
and I feel I remember you having her. The thing is that I love so many of them. So it's really hard for me to like just.
I think I got you to like put her above Mickey when we kind of
because at first, but the thing was that with Mickey, for me, it was more his character, because again, the film student, the guy that loves the movies, this and that and that, and then the fact
wants to get caught.
that wants to get caught, you know, and it was again like obvious, because I remember when it was this reveal, 11-year-old me was like, well, duh, you haven't been around the movie for I don't know how long. You weren't killed off, and you didn't say a proper goodbye, so it has to be you.
Yes,
you know?
And there was this great commentary at the time of, you know,
violence in cinema.
Yeah, and violence in cinema. If there's a correlation of like why people do things because of the movies, so for him to kind of want to use that as a whole defense is just another brilliant kind of thing of Scream movies being topical to things happening in the world in terms of horror movies, and that kind of commentary with movies in general. So I really
which was
liked
a little wild in the first one. That line, which I felt like was a very true line and a very scary line. Going back to the first one, when Billy goes, movies don't create cycles, movies make cycles
more creative. Yes.
And
so
you're
brilliant.
like, what the fuck?
That is kind of true. Yeah.
It's true. It's scary. It's scary because you don't know, somebody be like, plan some stupid shit out like that. And they basically kind of did the same shit because of watching scary movies. And again, Stu didn't really have a motive but to follow his best friend. Right, he was just like, Billy asked me to do it, and I did it, and he's like, did Norman Bates
peer
have a motive?
pressure? I'm far too sensitive.
Yeah, he goes, what's your motive? He goes, peer pressure, and Billy had a motive the whole time, which again, we're kind of jumping back and forth, but the fact that Billy had the motive this whole time and Stu had no idea.
Kevin Williamson talked about that. He said when he was selling the script, he had a camp of people telling him it's scarier with no motive, and other people telling him it's scarier with a motive. So then that's why he decided to do both. Have one killer have no motive at all, and one killer to have a clear motive. And the one just kind of following. So he was like, the best way to do it is to do both.
Yeah, no. So it's brilliant. It really is. And that's why I'm obsessed with these films. But let's look at, obviously, this low-budget, small film that we had in 1996, and less than a year later, right? We have the sequel to the biggest, I think it was one of the biggest box office hits of 1996, if I'm not mistaken, right?
I think so.
I don't think it was the top one, but I think it was one of the for a horror movie, it fucking killed.
Wow, yeah.
I remember it being in the theater for months, because usually what movies last, 3-4 months in the theater. I remember that being for almost half a year in the theater, so people can get their asses to the seats.
Yeah.
But then you have the returning cast, and then you have, small parts, but you still have Omar Epps, you have Jada Pinkett, you have Heather Graham, Luke Wilson, Tori Spelling's in this. You have Rebecca Gayheart. Obviously, she was just
Portia de Rossi.
Starting with Portia de Rossi's in it. Sarah Michelle Gellar is in it. Like Joshua Jackson. Joshua Jackson, Jerry O'Connell. Like, you have names now and because everybody, it didn't matter what it was. They wanted a small piece of this pie. They were just like, I don't care what you put me in as. Let's go. Did you a little fun fact that I found out with the audio commentary? Did you know that Selma Blair was the one on the phone with Sarah Michelle Gellar? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I just learned that.
Selma Blair. Yeah, so Selma Blair was the when Sarah Michelle Gellar's talking to her friend
on the phone, and her friend's like trying to freak her out. Yeah,
and she's like freaking her out, kill, doing all that shit. Yeah, that was Selma Blair, uncredited, but it was actually her on the phone, which I thought was a lot of fun.
Matthew Lillard also working in the background at the frat party scene.
Stu himself in the background of the movie as well, in the party scene. But yeah, I felt like, again, this movie, when I first saw it, I thought it was better than the original. I thought it was it's still, again, we're obviously I'm gonna want to rate the franchise, but not until the end. I won't say where this one will place. But it's hard for me sometimes, because upon rewatches, I'm like, no, this one's better. But then I'll watch the other one. I'm like, no, this one's better. I like this one better than this one, and things like that. I don't feel like there's a bad one. There's one, again, with this, and it's maybe my love for it. And, some people bash some more than others, and I will defend some of the future ones on why I think they're actually good films. But I felt like they did their job with this one. Everything that scene when they're in that coffee shop, and
we see Stab on the TV, and we see Tori Spelling.
They're talking about Tori Spelling talking,
and Luke Wilson.
Yeah, Luke Wilson is Tori Spelling, which is crazy again, because
this is the question. With my luck,
this is the question. This is the question that I lost to at trivia, which I knew the answer. I just said the wrong freaking name. But in the first movie, Dewey mentions this, because you're like, oh, imagine if the story of your life becomes a movie, and she goes, he's like, I'll see you as a it's
young Meg Ryan.
I'm sorry, it's Tatum that says
Tatum says that. Imagine who they
Tatum says it, and then Dewey's like, I see you as a young Meg Ryan, and then she goes, yeah, with my luck they'll cast Tori Spelling,
and then
they cast Tori Spelling, which is so nice.
Yes, and even the conversation that, because we never really get to see Randy and Dewey have scenes together. So getting to see them kind of break down the suspects and have this really kind of fun back and forth was really great to kind of finally see these characters interact. Also, we get the introduction of even though it's Broken Arrow, like, this is Dewey's theme, 100%.
Oh, boom, 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 boom.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, that music.
Boom, boom, boom. Every time.
Music.
Steph laughs at me every time, because every time that scene's coming, I always have to out loud, bum 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 bum, and then even So when I saw String 5,
and they bring it back,
and they play it, I was like,
yes! So good. Yes, that is Dewey's theme, 100% to me. I don't care about Broken Arrow and John Travolta.
And I remember
introduction.
I obviously saw Broken Arrow before Scream, right? But I've seen Broken Arrow like twice. I saw it recently while I was studying for Schmodown. I was doing action films, and I was like, that fucking Dewey's theme. I had no idea.
Yeah,
I had no idea.
And you only kind of picture it with Dewey, so it's crazy that it's from a completely
for me, it's Dewey's theme. It is what it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then the unofficial, I know we haven't mentioned this, but the unofficial Scream song, Red Right Hand, every time I hear it.
Oh, yes.
It's just fantastic. I freaking love that song. They played it, like, obviously in in a little scene in the first one, and then they play it right in the opening as she's walking down the theater. You're hearing Red Right Hand play as they're introducing the staff in the theater. Yes. Fantastic
stuff. The song is so perfect. Love that we get a character who's smart enough to get the fuck out of there. Thank you, Dwayne. Dwayne Martin, Joel. Yeah. He's just great. He's so funny. He's like,
so great
I don't need to hear about any cameraman getting their throat slashed.
He's like he wasn't gutted.
The guy ain't in the union no more.
His neck was slashed. So I love that, and he actually pitched that to Wes Craven.
Yes, I saw his little interview.
Like, my character, he's like, my character's so self-aware. He's reading the book. He doesn't want to be there. Why would I stick around? Why would my character stick around? And then Wes Craven's like, how would you leave?
He's like, in a
taxi. And he does that in the movie. He literally gets in a cab and gets the fuck out of there.
But what is so funny to me is literally he's maybe with Gail for 2 days. He comes back at the end. Hey, Gail, let's get the scoop. Like in the old days.
Like in the old days.
Dude, just met this bitch.
Yeah.
What are the old days?
That line did bother me too. And I'm like in the old days. What are you talking about? Tuesday? It's Thursday, bro.
Exactly. She cracks me up every time. The old days.
I hate that line. I hate that line so much.
It's funny. Old days.
Man. No, but yeah. And then you have the fake out Dewey kill in the movie as well, which you had in part 1 and in part 2.
But the switch up is now Gail goes with him this time. So I love that kind of build on their relationship. And even their banter is really fun in this movie, nice streaks and him kind of quoting all the terrible things she said about him in her book. And that their whole kind of chemistry works so well. So obviously, they were falling in love at this time.
I was going to ask, were they together at this point, or were they just meeting?
They started dating after the first one.
After the first one, they started dating.
They were together, and then by the third one, they had just gotten married.
By the third one, yep.
They had just gotten married and come back from their honeymoon. That's why they're so tan.
And he's the one that. Well, we'll talk about the horrible haircut on
the bangs
episode, I mean, again, as far as sequels go, this is one that I mentioned. I would never say now superior in the first one because the first one's untouchable. But strong sequels, I still believe Scream 2 is a strong sequel.
Yeah.
Again, it ups the body counts, the death scenes. I was about to quote Randy. The death scenes are much more elaborate.
Two great, super suspenseful scenes with the car having to climb over Ghostface and the sound studio. Those scenes were terrifying.
The chase is that the chase with Gail is one of my favorites in the front, and that tense scene where Sydney's in the car, stuck, can't get out, and she has to sneak out with an unconscious Ghostface.
Yeah,
I remember sweating bullets during that scene because I was like, my heart was like, like going so fast.
When she leans in on that horn when she's reaching for the mask, oh my gosh!
That
and then Hallie has to do it right after.
And I still scream at her, and I'm like, take it off! Like, why would you not take it off?
Yeah,
but the movie has to happen, and the fact that and the fact that Hallie literally tells her, "We're smart girl, like smart people, let's get the fuck out of here." Like, what are you doing?
And then she,
I blame Sydney for that one.
Yeah,
or girl Hallie.
I know, I love her.
But all-star cast, I think everybody delivers. Laurie Metcalf, like I said, was fantastic. The eyes, man, the crazy eyes, and Cotton Weary coming to the rescue, kind of,
But he'll only do it when she kind of agrees to do that interview. So it's kind of like, Cotton, are you?
Yeah, would you? What if I said no?
15 minutes. Like he really wants that damn 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Clear his
but
name and all that.
I'd like to think Sydney took that $10,000 because how does she buy that fancy ranch she's living in Scream 3?
Yeah, and the third one, huh?
Yeah.
But yeah. What about you? What about you? What are your thoughts? I know me and her banter on.
No, I'm gonna be honest with you. Listen, I love the Scream franchise. I am actually enjoying. You guys, I know this is like your number one.
This is literally us, like all the time. Just
that's fine.
Yeah,
listen.
This is our. If you guys want to see our conversations, this is it. This is what we talk about all the time.
Yeah, that's what we're here for. No, I definitely think this is one of the stronger sequels that came in the franchise. The only one I'm a little sour on is 3, but I'm kind of curious now to rewatch it after not seeing it so long.
People have really come around on 3 in recent times, so I think you'll kind of have more fun with it.
I'm glad you're gonna rewatch it because I'm gonna point out some shit for you that probably didn't work back then that works now. So I am a slight. It's I wasn't crazy about 3 when it first came out, and then upon rewatches, I just have a big appreciation for it. I didn't hate it by any means, but I thought it was the weaker of the 3. But I have much appreciation for it. But yeah, we'll talk about that. But
Scream 2 is definitely holds up really well. And I think it does. I mean, I still will hold the original over it if I'm ranking them as we go along. But it's not. I don't think it's night and day. I kind of think you have the original being the original, and like the classic, you want to say. But 2 really does hold its own very much.
Definitely.
So
absolutely,
yeah. I wouldn't put it in the superior sequel category, like within the film we're talking about.
Because it isn't superior to the original, in my opinion. And there are some sequels that are very obvious superior to the original. But it doesn't. Like let's say Scream for me is a perfect 10 film. Like I'll put this one at a 9.5. Like it's right behind it for me. Like I really like this film. So So
agreed.
Yeah. So that's it. That's our Scream talk, I guess, right? Unless final thoughts, anybody?
Just love this movie. I'm excited for that representation. Like I said, like all fleshed out, great, fun Black characters. Seeing people who look like me in a movie that I'm really excited about was super special for me. Just great commentary on sequels, great performances from everyone. A great surprise at the end when you kind of thought it was going to be super obvious with Mickey, and then just to kind of twist it like that with Mrs. Loomis. Just so much fun. I feel like each of these movies have a little bit of like horror kind of stunt casting, as I kind of have gone back over the years and learned more about horror. We had Linda Blair in the first one, and now we actually have David Warner from The Omen in this one.
The Omen.
So
So rest in peace.
And then we get Lance Henriksen in the third one. So I always feel like there's maybe a little bit of purposeful kind of fun casting. So, in kind of going back and learning who David Warner actually is, and, seeing him in this movie, I think was a fun little thing.
My introduction to David Warner was Ninja Turtles 2: Secret of the Ooze.
What?
That's honestly where I remember him from, and I always remember him as the doctor from The Secret of the Ooze. I obviously know him now.
Okay, well that is now me learning of a second Ninja Turtles connection to the Scream franchise, because
what's the first?
In the third one, Josh Pius, Wallace, Kincaid's partner.
That's right. He's Ralph.
He's Raphael.
He's Raphael. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah,
Raphael. And there's actually a scene of him eating pizza in the third movie. So well, weird connection.
Little sneak peek for next episode.
Yes.
But guys, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I can talk this movie obviously all day. We were going for maybe 40-50 minutes, and we're at an hour and a half right now. I obviously, Ed, I know Janine knows, how much now I love this franchise.
Yeah.
All the little things about it. I'll do deep dives all day. But thank you so much. I know this show was super, like on the moment. Let's do this. Let's go with it right now. I just realized this channel has never talked this film ever. So I'm super excited for it, and thank you.
Yes.
Bottom of my heart. I love it.
Me and my co-host are doing Me and my co-host are doing a watch along tomorrow. So if you guys want to join or watch along, you are welcome.
Plug it.
No, go ahead. Plug it.
Yeah, plug it. Absolutely.
Yeah. So
Well, what's the name of the channel and stuff where we could?
It's a Wonderful Podcast is our channel, so we'll be watching it around 2 p.m. PST. So come hang out.
He's seen it though, right? It's not one of the movies that he hasn't seen.
But he literally remembers none of the sequels, so I'm totally like pissed at him. Like I'll be gushing about 2 and 3 and 4.
No, exactly.
I don't remember any of this, so he needs to do a rewatch of the sequels. But he knows one and the new one really well.
Yeah. So she has a great show called Morgan Hasn't Seen, and it's basically her, because she loves film, obviously, and she just basically makes him watch movies that she finds great, or like he hasn't seen a lot of things, and she has this whole show based off Morgan hasn't seen it and he watches a movie. I think you guys do one a week if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, so we'll do each month will be kind of a theme. So we've done like John Wick, we've done the Terminator movies, we did the whole Fast and Furious franchise. It started because he hadn't seen like the early MCU movies. The first MCU movie he saw was Captain America, the first Avenger. And he hadn't seen Iron Man 1, 2, or 3. He hadn't seen either Thor movie, and he hadn't seen the Incredible Hulk. But he was going to go into Endgame.
Ed is having a heart attack right now.
He was going to go into
right
Endgame. He was going to go into Endgame not having seen those movies. So he wouldn't have understood the stakes of Iron Man.
Yeah, the reference,
Dark World kind of Thor the Dark World moment that comes back, that circles back in such a great way. And that movie would have made no sense to him. He would have had no context for it. So we were just going to do a one-off kind of series talking about those early MCU films that he missed. And then we kind of enjoyed it. And then it turned into this show. And now we've since had 200 episodes of over 200 movies that he's never seen that we've watched. So
that's awesome.
Yeah,
it's awesome. Yeah, so Ed's show is based strictly off like comic book films and nerd talk. So right now.
Oh yeah, so I probably just broke your brain. Yeah, no, he broke my brain when he told me he hadn't seen those movies. Like, you're really gonna go into Endgame and you haven't seen a single Iron Man movie? What is wrong with you?
That's a sound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, check that out, and thanks for joining us as always on Pop Culture Pros. We'll be putting out another episode of Double Deep Dive Scream. We'll go over and hash out what it'll be 3 and 4, or if we want to do 3, 4, 5, we'll figure that out. But definitely 3 and 4.
We'll figure that out.
Yeah, in the next episode. And also Double Deep Dive, if you want, we'll call it proper. We'll be back on Wednesday at 8:30. Well, they'll be talking about Thunderball as Jason and Ginny continue the Bond franchise as they're in the final edge of the Sean Connery run during that.
The era, yep.
Yeah, and for Granny's PhD, you can come check us out next week. We'll be talking about the latest episode of The Flash, as well as The Last of Us. And our movie of the week will be Tim Story's Fantastic Four. So we are in a weird spot right now.
I actually like that movie. I actually do really like that.
All right, so yeah, come check us out then. And thank you everybody for checking it out, and we'll see you next week. Peace.